Good evening, race fans. Welcome to round number 7 of Victory Lane Racing's nationwide series brought to you by Glacier TV. I'm Doyle Johnson.
Hi, I'm Randy Costo, and we'd like to introduce a new commentator in the booth, Mr. Ryan Norton.
Hello. Hello.
How are you doing tonight, Ryan? He's going to be taking the cue from the engineering standpoint, and welcome to the race.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Watkins Glen is a lot of fun in these cars.
You know, Ryan Norton has a lot of extensive background in technical advice as far as setups and fuel mileage and, you know, the technical aspects of the race. So Doyle and I are kind of going to lean on Ryan to give us some insight into fuel mileage and strategy and the different setups that these guys are running throughout this race. So thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Yeah, like I said, it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, tonight, as Ryan mentioned, we're coming to you live from Watkins Glen, New York, where we're going to be doing a little turning right today. After 6 rounds, turning left, we're going to do some turning right. This track is 2.45 miles. It has 8 turns, and actually 6 of them are right turns. So there's not a lot of left turning today.
You know, Doyle, I noticed that Christopher Shella looks like he qualified quite well. He was doing pretty good in the last race. How do you anticipate his start, and what do you see for him in this race?
Well, Christopher Shella remained the points leader in this particular series after coming in second last week to. So it's nice to see him qualifying up front and being the points leader. This is probably exactly where we'd expect him. So, you know, you got Brian Harford qualifying second. He qualified on the pole last week, but again, this is a road race, so this is there's a lot of difference between what we see when we're doing the ovals and what kind of skills it takes and the setups it takes to do both left and right turns on a road course. So it's going to be kind of exciting to see what we have. Going here. Andy, did you want to go ahead and take us through the field?
Sure. You know, as far as qualifying, we have Christopher Shella on the pole. We have Brian Hartford on the outside. Second row is Jacob Fye with outside David Forge. Third row is Christopher Schelzer and Nick Milano. Then we have Nick Zatner and Patrick Davis. Then we have Ryan Wells. And then we've got a few folks that didn't qualify, but Lance Williams, Eric Howe, Brandon Williams, Danny Hugel, Neil Frognick, and Sam Adams. Sam Adams. That's a great name. I like that because I'm a Coors Lights fan.
No, Sam Adams is definitely a better beverage than Coors Light, but that's okay. It looks like for tonight's race, a lot of new faces out there, Randy. Of course, we have your usuals: Christopher Shella, David Forge, Lance Williams, who did not put down a qualifying time, who was battling up front last week. If you remember, Randy got in that horrible accident with Christopher Shella, ended his night early, and he won 2 weeks ago. So, looks like the pace car is going in.
Take us to the green
flag. Here we go.
Wow, did you see Lance Williams shoot up through the middle like that? That was an incredible move. He started near the back of the pack. He's already in 4th place.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate him to stay back very long. He's extremely fast. We'll see if we can keep it on the track. Hey, Ryan, tell us a little bit about the mechanics of running a car around a road course that's typically designed just to turn left.
Well, on an oval, you bias the car a lot of left side weight. You know, depending on the setup, you'll run the cross weight a little higher, a little lower. You know, on a road course, you set the car up pretty much 50-50 split on the left-right side weight, and you know your cross weight will be around 50 usually. You can kind of play around with it and favor one corner or another. Like there's a lot of right-hand turns at Watkins Glen. You might set the car up to naturally turn right a little bit better. And you know, as far as other aspects, you know, on ovals you'll run a little tire stagger. Left side's a little bit smaller than the right side's on the diameter. Where on the road course they're going to be pretty much the same size. It's just a couple of little details. Your springs will be pretty much even left or right, whereas on an oval you might see a really big right rear and a little bit softer left rear. Just a couple of little things that they set these cars up to turn right, and it's worth noting that it's the same car on the outside, but the chassis is totally different. You could never take a road course chassis to an oval track. They're just too much of a different animal to try to build one car to do both.
Boy, and as Ryan explained that to us, the different setups and all, Lance Williams, number 20, he started in the middle of the pack. He's already worked his way up to second, and he is fighting for first place with Christopher Shella. So let's see how this plays out.
Well, actually, it's first place is actually Jacob Fry, the number 36 Golden Corral car. Jacob Fife was not in our race last week, but apparently has a pretty good handle on how to drive a road course.
Got a big spin on the front stretch. Looks like the 7 of Patrick Davis into the pit wall. I'm sorry, it was Christopher Sheltzer, the 07.
Yeah, it looks like pretty much a one-car accident. It doesn't look like anybody got involved in that other than him just getting spun out.
Yeah, and we talked about the differences in oval and road. It's worth noting with Christopher's spin there. On the road courses, there's not a lot of banking. Your overall speed's probably a lot lower, especially in the last turn there. They're trying to get basically 750 horsepower down on a tire 8 inches wide. It's very easy to get these cars just to step out on you.
Again, it looks like the 07 car of Christopher Sheltzer. He's back on the track and trying to cut some laps, and that's a shame because that Yoo-Hoo car was looking pretty appetizing. Is now pretty crumpled up in the back, and he's getting all kinds of loose from one corner to another. So I don't know if maybe he should hit the pits on his next time by. Interesting enough, Christopher Shella generally is a late charger in almost every race we've seen so far. He's kind of back a ways, 1.5 from the leaders. Jacob Fife seems to have, he's the one with the wheels today, and Lance Williams up front. So hopefully we can get Lance and Christopher, make sure they don't get into each other tonight. Ryan, does it look to you like Christopher Shella is kind of holding back, or maybe his car is a little squirrely?
I'd say these guys are battling out pretty good. They actually touched twice on that long right-hand sweeper there, so I'd say Christopher... Yeah, I'd say Christopher, you watch him get loose there on entering the stretch. I'd say he's just trying to feel his car out after, spinning there. Took a little bit of damage in the right rear.
Oh, we just had a nice pass to the lead there.
Whoa. Oh, and yeah, and there goes Lance Williams. It's in typical Lance Williams fashion to kind of jet on by and try to clear out. So we'll see if he can hold on to that car. Lance Williams, his performance has been, Randy, we've seen him in the last few weeks. I think this is the third race for him in this series, and he's been pretty dominant a lot of the time. His speed's been pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely, Doyle. It looks like he might be one of those road course ringers that we talk about in NASCAR on occasion. He's done really well on the ovals, but he seems to be kind of checking out. So he's looking good so far.
Rounding out your field now, we've got Lance Williams now scored as your winner. Jacob Fife in second place. Christopher Shella in the 02 car will be third place. Brian Harford, last week's pole setter, is in fourth. David Forsch, fifth place. Nick Molino in sixth place. Nick Zautner, seventh place. Christopher Schelzer, eighth place. Brandon E. Williams, ninth place. Ryan Wells, still on the track, 10th place, and Patrick Davis rounding out position number 11. So we actually don't have any DNFs so far, which is rather impressive from what we expected.
I tell you what, Jacob might be the first if his car doesn't settle down here. His car has been extremely loose, especially in one going up the hill there. He had a big moment. Let's see if he can't settle it down a little bit and get those rear tires cooled off a little bit.
You know, Ryan, you're talking about when you go through a corner and you heat up the tires and, you know, they need to be cooled down a bit. So if you overcook the tires in one turn, you're going to pay the price in the next turn, right?
No, you do it bad enough, not even in the next turn. You could do it the whole next half lap. You know, especially here where you have these long sweeping turns that if you get a tire a little hot, it just seems to get worse. And you really have to, you know, back it down to 90% and just get the car back underneath you.
So with the new tire model, if you overcook it in a turn, you're going to pay the price, and you just kind of need to back it down like you said. But you can recuperate that tire later on. Is that right?
Yeah, if the tire cools off the way it's set up right now, you pretty much keep the same amount of grip as a new tire. I know iRacing is working on that, and that is one of the quirks, I would say. I wouldn't call it a fault quite yet, but definitely if you can cool these tires off, they regain a lot of that grip that they lose when they're hot.
You know, it looks like we got a pretty good. Looks like Christopher Shell is closed up on Jacob Fife, but Lance Williams continues to pull a little bit. 1.8 seconds in front of your second place car, and we had a little bit of squirreliness going into that last corner. So he continues to move out in front, which is typical Lance Williams style. Interesting to see whether Christopher Shella is. Oh my gosh. Shella gets into the back of Jacob Fife. That was not good racing. I can imagine we're going to exchange some words on that one.
I'll tell you what, though. Yeah, Jacob, he did a good recovery though. He's back in eighth, and looks like he's got his car under control now. I'm sure he's not going to be happy with that, but at least his car is in one piece.
That just gives Lance Williams a bigger lead there, and it brings Brian Harford. It's going to be in your second place driver now. And then David Forsch is going to be, David Forsch mowing the lawn there. He's going to be in third place, so that kind of changed up the race quite a bit. So we're going to see what happens with that. Christopher Shella and Jacob Fife have to kind of make their way back up through the field to see how they do when they get a little traffic.
You know, it's worth noting as Lance rides out front here. You know, he's got a little bit of a lead. Actually, it's about 4 seconds. Fuel is not a sure thing here. It's, you know, you're right at that window of 35 laps, depending on your throttle control. You know, what this lets him do is kind of sit out there and save fuel, and maybe he doesn't have to make that late race pit stop.
You know, Ryan, you bring up a good point. If they can make this on full fuel, how much time will these guys maybe save or gain if they decide, you know, 3/4 of the way in or halfway in to maybe grab new tires? I mean, how much are new tires worth it in this race?
Definitely not enough to warrant pitting. You know, I haven't been down this particular pit road, but you're at least talking a 30 to even 45 seconds of a gap of not pitting versus pitting. I think it's closer to 30. You might gain 1 or 2 seconds a lap at the most until the tires drop off. I just don't see, if you can make it on no stops, I see that as being the faster way to do things today. If it was race was maybe 10 laps longer, where you definitely couldn't make it on fuel, you would see a lot of people come down around midway through the race, just try to maximize those new tires.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting what's going on the track now. You've got the 01 car of David Forsch being pursued by Jacob Fife, who was originally our race leader. So we know he has plenty of car and the skills to drive this track. So we're going to see if he's going to be able to get around him anytime soon, because you have Lance Williams continuing to pull away. But Brian Harford is also trying to set a pretty good gap there between him and the third place driver, David Forsch. So we're going to see whether the battle going on in the back here is just going to allow the leaders to get away and extend that gap a little more.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Doyle. Jacob's about 9.5 seconds behind the leader, and he's putting a lot of pressure on David Forsch for third place. So if he can get by David Forsch, let's see if he can continue his charge up towards the front.
And interesting enough, Christopher Shella is after that crash that he had, I think he might have had some damage to his car, because he is definitely not laying down the lap times he originally did. He's falling further and further behind, and that's got to be a big disappointment for Christopher Shella. Looks like we're getting into some lap traffic here now. Hopefully that doesn't cause any.
Yeah, you're one of David Forsch. He just lost it into the left-hander there right before the right into the finish or finish straight. Looks like he's locked the front tires up. Maybe I'm watching this. It looks like he made a little bit too much rear brake and just got the rear of the car sliding, and fortunately got it right into the wall there.
Oh yeah, and that was causing some other cars to get off the track. It looks like Jacob Fife actually got into the kitty litter out there, trying to avoid everything. Oh yeah, his car's definitely damaged.
Earlier in the race I mentioned, you got 750 horsepower trying to go down on a tire about 8 inches wide. The opposite is true. You have 3,400 pounds, you're trying to get slowed down. You get these things dialed in with a little too much rear brake. They tend to be very oversteery, and you can lose them just like we've seen David do there. The opposite is true with the front brakes. If you get a little too much front brakes, you have a lot of lockup, and that can really be detrimental to your front tires and really tighten the car up on you, which just makes the situation worse. So Watkins Glen is known as a very technical, track among NASCAR drivers, just for that reason. A lot of high-speed corners, and it's a lot of fun. They love this place.
Yeah, and as we get back on the track, Lance Williams continues to open up his gap on the cars behind him, trying to make his way through lap traffic right now. Looks like Nick Zontner, looks like he may be out of the race. He's currently 4 laps down. He may be trying to get down there, trying to get some repairs to his vehicle, but for right now, it's not looking good for Nick Zontner. Not the showing he probably hoped to have when he came out here today.
Actually, Nick's out of the race. He got loose out of turn 1 there and got on the grass a little bit, tried to save it, and ended up contacting the left side wall there.
Yep, Jacob. Yeah, it looks like Brian Harford is also got himself a pretty comfortable gap on the third place driver, Jacob Fife. Jacob seems to be really up on the wheel trying to close that gap. He's kind of getting all over the track. He might want to calm it down a little bit there, because we've seen him in the grass several times in the last lap or two.
I tell you what, Jacob's been at it from lap 1. I've just watched his driving. He is up on the wheel. I'm not sure his tires are going to really survive to the end of the race if he keeps going like this. But I got to give him an A for effort here. He's really he wants to go. We'll have to see. He may need to just slow it down and get back to the slow in, fast out mantra, especially with these big, heavy cars.
Yeah, you're right, Ryan. So many times it's so easy to overdrive a track. It's so easy to overdrive a corner. But if you can back it down and methodically hit that corner the right way, you will be faster. So sometimes it is true. Slow down to go faster.
And on these road courses, it's typical to see what we're seeing. Large spreads in between drivers, so and spread in between your first place finisher and your third place finisher could be, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. And sometimes you get these battles going on, and it really doesn't do any good to drive the wheels off your car on lap 15 of 35 laps. If you check out what's going on behind Jacob Fife, there's some people that are being a lot more conservative with a race car that could very easily end up overtaking him at some point in time, just simply because they've still got tread on their tires.
Or simply because they don't make that late race error that costs them a couple seconds in the grass, or even, unfortunately getting into the wall. When you drive these cars at 100% or 105%, the margin between a good corner and a wreck is pretty small.
Yeah, and you guys bring up a good point. Normally, these NASCAR drivers are used to running ovals where they get some yellows and they get some pit stops. In this road race, we may not get any pit stops. So it is a matter of taking care of your tires throughout the whole run. And this is an open setup. So is your setup, good for the long run, or is it a setup good for the short run? So I guess we'll find out.
Well, I can tell you, whatever setup Lance Williams has is good for the fast run right now. He's really keeping the hammer down. It's just amazing. We've seen that before. And Ryan, in the 2 previous races that we managed to witness, Lance Williams came on for his first race 2 weeks ago and pretty much dominated the last quarter of that race. And then he came out last week at Kentucky, was up front and contending for first place through most of the race, and then there was a pretty bad crash up front that took him out of the race, which was unfortunate, because it appears no matter where he's at, he's going to be contending for that top spot.
As we're talking here, we see Christopher Shella has caught Nick Milanu. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, in his gain-powered machine. Looks like he's just going to play it smart, let him go by. Nick probably knows this is a long race, and Christopher's a little bit faster. So he's probably just he took the safe route and just let him by, and maybe try to follow him a little bit, learn a little bit from him, and try to find some speed and maybe get him later on in the race.
You're right, Ryan. That's what most good racers do. When someone comes up behind you and they're faster, let them by. And you know what? Learn from them, and you can catch them. And that kind of seems what's going on here.
Well, you also have the aspect of the fact that Christopher Shella and Nick Milanu are actually on the same team. They're on Force Racing along with David Forsh, who's currently in 6th place. So they're probably doing that as a team, and knowing Christopher Shella is your current points leader. Oh, there he goes off into the grass. They may be trying to get Christopher as far up front as they possibly can so he can maintain that lead. I do believe that Nick Melano, if I'm not mistaken, is the crew chief for Force Racing and is the one that's actually developed these setups.
I tell you what, as we're watching Christopher here, he is on a mission to catch Jacob. He's really driving his car. I think he sees a podium, about 4 seconds out right now, and he's going after it.
We also see that Brian Harford in second is kind of closing the gap on Lance Williams in first. I mean, he was about 4 seconds behind a few laps ago. He's 3.7, so it looks like Brian's kind of reeling in Lance a little bit, so we might have a good battle for the lead here shortly.
It's a good possibility. What Ryan was talking about earlier, Lance may, it's a good thing he's got that gap, but he may be a little too far up on the wheel himself, and he may be letting his tires cool down. So this could be a short-lived gain that we're going to see by Brian Harford. But we saw Brian Harford run pretty good last week at Kentucky. So he may be a driver to contend with as well now that he's managed to get himself up there.
Well, now's the point where we see the setups and the tires come into play. We're about halfway through this race, and these guys, their cards are being played, and let's see how they lay out.
Yeah, that's one thing. As a fan, you love to see those late race cautions and the fields get stacked up. But as a driver, and even as I sit here and watch, I really like seeing the strategy play out. Maybe Lance did drive a little hard. He was certainly one of the fastest cars on track, if not the fastest, the first half of this race. But, maybe his set up for the short run. And Brian's is set up for the long run. So as a driver, I think you really enjoy these moments and really allowing your plan to unfold, as the race goes on, and you start to see, Lance's couple tenths every lap. Does he have enough to get there in 15 laps? We'll have to see. But I guarantee you he's having a lot of fun, and Lance while he's leading, he's having a lot of fun doing that. I'm sure he's in the back of his mind, he's seeing that car get closer and closer.
You're absolutely right, Ryan. As a matter of fact, in the last lap, Brian picked up 0.2 of a second on Lance Williams, our leader. So let's see how this plays out. It looks like we might have a battle for the lead later on.
Yeah, and you got Brian Harford running 14.299s that last lap, and Lance Williams only 0.531. So he's decisively slower right now on his lap times than Brian Harford.
And, before the race goes on too far and we get wrapped up in the battle for the lead here, I really like to point out the brakes. Oh, we see Lance Williams pitting. That is pretty unexpected this late in the race. I would have expected him to come earlier.
Yeah, I bet you his tires are probably gone.
Oh, we have multiple cars down the pit road. Christopher Shella, Jacob Fife, and Lance Williams. This looks like a couple of your top 5 here pitted for tires. We'll have to see how that plays out. They had a pretty sizable lead on some of the cars behind them. Brian Hartford, though, you got to wonder maybe if he wasn't saving a little fuel early on. And finally he said, okay, I can go now. And definitely have to see how that plays out. Maybe he has the fuel to stretch it.
You're right, Ryan. Very interesting. I mean, I thought, like you, that these guys had enough fuel to go the full race. So to pit for tires, and then all of them pit around the same time, boy, it just adds to the drama, does it not?
It does, and I believe Doyle was saying those guys are all on the same team, so maybe they know something done a little testing here.
Yeah,
And,
could be a little, hey, let's do this, and let's see what happens. Nice. Ryan, can you comment on the tire and fuel situation these guys did?
Yeah, I just had somebody put a bug in my ear. It looks like Lance William and Jacob Fife did not take tires, which is, you spend all that time going down pit road and not take tires. It has about 10 seconds, but that's a little surprising. I would figure tires would be worth at least, if you're coming down to take tires and not just fuel.
Well, and the lap times have really fallen off. See Brian Harford in the pits. Oh, that's interesting. Obviously, Lance Williams will come by him and regain his lead. We'll see how that battle plays out. Will he take just fuel or tires, I wonder?
This late in the race, I have a feeling he's just going to take fuel.
There goes Lance Williams. So now, he's got to get back into that race. Let's see how big that gap is and if he loses any more positions.
And unfortunately for Brian, I think he's going to be caught with speeding on pit road.
Oh, that's not what he wanted. So that's definitely going to be a game changer for Brian Harford. We're talking lap 23 of 35 laps, so he may not have enough race to make up for that penalty he just had to serve.
Yeah, he was there for a good 15 seconds, which is about the length of a penalty, and it did not take tires. So I definitely think he was on a fuel-only stop there. That's going to really hurt his chances.
Well, and then that brings Jacob Fife back into the second position, and obviously Lance Williams will now be scored as your leader. So we're right back to where we started. Interesting how this has played out from start to now. People have gone behind. So it is, as you were talking about, Ryan, this is definitely we're seeing how the strategy is actually going to play out. Team Force, though, their strategy doesn't seem to be playing out at all. Right now you got Christopher Shella still in fourth place, but the rest of Team Force is definitely not really in the hunt. Yeah, we're having one of our technical people telling us that the first team, actually all of them took 4 tires, so they're the only ones so far that took tires, but I'm not seeing that making a huge difference.
And not at all. One of the, to get back to, this is a simulation or a game, as some people would say. One of the complaints or observations with the tire we have is there's not a lot of fall off. And once you get past that initial drop, it seems like these tires can really go a long way without losing any speed.
Well, it appears that, there is something to say for the tires, it looks like. Christopher Shella just ran a 13.808. He's also driving like a madman. He's pretty much sideways everywhere he's going, so he's trying to get up on the wheel and gain some positions. Definitely the tires are making a difference on the lap times.
Yeah, I just don't think he has enough time. Even 2 seconds a lap here, he's going to be out of time, or at the very least, maybe to get to the back of some of these guys. But the way he's driving, I just don't think the tires are going to really hold up very long. And
he's trying to get up to Brian Harford with everything he's got, and he's driving the wheels right off that car to get there. I'm not so sure that's a smart move at this point.
I got to give Lance Williams a lot of credit here. He's just clicking off, maybe not the fastest laps, but he's just so consistent. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and just really showing why he's up there in the lead. Some of these other guys, they may be able to put a faster lap together, but it seems like they just make those little errors that can really hurt them over a long run. It doesn't take a lot, you one little mix-up, you get the tires, spin them off of, the turn going on in the front stretch where you have all that time to lose that momentum. That can cost you a second. And when you're only talking 3, 4, 5 seconds in between positions, those little mistakes really add up.
Yeah, and he's opened up such a huge gap of seconds on the number 36 car of Jacob Fife that's in second place. At this point in time, it would not make any sense for him to drive, any harder than what he really is. And he's still putting down a decent lap time, but at this point, with this much race, it's lap 26. There's only 35 laps in the race, so it's really up to him to lose the race. It's not a matter of somebody catching him. It's up to him to keep it together and not make any mistakes that will cause him to end his night.
You're right, Doyle, but we do have Christopher Shella moving up on Brian Harford. He's making some ground. I've been watching this battle for third place, and Christopher's moving up. He has caught Brian, and I think we've got a good race for third place.
Yeah, as we see Christopher go wide there, just wanted to, this is what I was going to bring up earlier when we see Lance come down pit road, is you watch the braking, which is, like I said, a lot of weight behind these cars. You see the brakes glow, especially the front brakes where they have a lot of pressure on them. And that's a new feature on iRacing. It's one, as a kind of a technical person, I really appreciate. I like those little details. It is graphics, but it is a lot of fun to look at. And it really shows you how these guys are so hard on the brakes going down in these corners. And, as we watched just a minute ago, we watched Christopher go wide into turn 1. These brakes, they take a little bit of abuse here, especially compared to a 1.5 or even a 1 miler.
And it's interesting to note what you said about the brakes. I was watching a truck race this weekend where the brakes got so hot that the rear end literally caught on fire. And they had to pit and put the truck out with a fire extinguisher. So yeah, these brakes do take a lot of abuse. And if Christopher Shella doesn't keep his car on the track, he's probably never going to catch Brian Harford. He's pretty sloppy out there right now.
Well, I don't know if Christopher would appreciate,
sloppy.
the sloppy. He's out there, he's wheeling it, he's having fun. Is it the fastest way around the track? Maybe not. But he's up on the wheel, he's having fun, and that's what this is about. I'm sure he wants to win or get a podium, but...
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Ryan. Christopher Shella, he sees that car in front. He's going after it. I mean, a racer's going to do that, and he's all over it. So if we keep an eye on him, I think we might see him close the gap a little further as we move forward.
Yeah, maybe he can make a pit stop and they can brush some of the grass off his tires there. But knowing that Team Force like I do, they're very hungry racers, and having fun is fun, but he's serious about wanting to catch that. So if he can just relax and keep his car on the track, he'll have a lot better chance of getting himself on that podium.
And we're talking about that, and I think Christopher unfortunately just wouldn't say shot himself in the foot, but made it very difficult to try to pull a pass off on Brian there, going wide into 1. I mentioned earlier about locking these front tires up, and it certainly seems like he's having a lot of issues under braking. So he just needs to focus on clean corners, and as you see here, he's running them down. He just gets down to that last 100 feet, and I think he gets it, the eye of the tiger in him, and kind of just overdrives the car, and it doesn't take a lot. It's definitely not a critique on him. It's so easy to overdrive these heavy cars.
You are so right, Ryan. I mean, the racer, takes over in all of us. And it's so easy to overdrive these cars. But really, if you slow down, you will go faster. And we'll see if Christopher can do that, because he is gaining on Brian again. So let's see this battle for third.
Well, and Christopher Shella is a points leader in this series for a reason. All kidding aside about his driving, he's definitely got driving ability, especially Team Force. He is the premier driver on that team. And Randy, you and I have both have witnessed him, Hard Charger Award, week after week. So, all kidding aside, Christopher Shella is definitely got a lot of skills. He just obviously struggling a little bit on course.
Yeah, as we're talking about these guys in the front, Christopher Shella, who we saw spin off of the final turn there, he silently made his way back into the top 5. Got to give him a lot of credit there, coming back from that. He's still a long way back from 4th and 3rd. But, I'm sorry, Christopher Sheltzer, my mistake there. He's done got his mind focused, and he's really made the best he could out of the last half of this race.
And this being Watkins Glen, and again, this is a left and right turn track that most of these drivers are not that used to. The fact we started with 11 drivers, we still have 7 drivers on the lead lap, which is actually more than we had at Kentucky at this point during the race. So, hats off to all the drivers for doing a remarkable job on a road course. They're definitely outside their element here. So they've done a really good job trying to keep it together and keeping the car on the track.
You're right, Doyle. And what do they have, about 5 laps left, right?
Around lap 29, we're getting next time by will be 5 laps to go.
I don't know, man. Keep your eye on Christopher Shella. He is catching up to Brian. This could be a good race for third place.
Well, and that's, you're watching this battle ensue here. Boy, Christopher's really struggling. But you see, Brian Harford, I think the main reason why Christopher has not overtaken him is not because Brian Harford's so much faster. He's very, very consistent. He's not making a lot of mistakes out here on the track right now.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Christopher Shella takes a wide line out of turn 1, and it seems like he gains, but then he loses when he moves forward there.
Oh, breaking news, everybody. Lance Williams is still in first place.
Speaking of breaking news, before this thing gets wound down here, I believe it's Scott Eckert's birthday today, if I was not mistaken.
I believe it is. That's the reason why we do not see him on the track. We were hoping to see Scott, but I guess he decided he had something that was better than driving Watkins Glen today for his birthday. We don't know how old he is, but happy birthday, Scott.
Well, for the sake of the argument, I'm going to say he's 21 and he's out having a blast. So happy birthday to him. And he's missing a heck of a race here these guys are putting on. So hopefully next week he'll be back and get it up on the wheel here.
Oh, and I can tell Lance Williams is getting a little puckered up over the lap traffic that we have here. We managed to get by him okay. Doesn't look like the lap traffic fared so well. That was a little shaky there for a moment. How are we doing back there with Brian and Christopher?
They still got a good battle going on. There's probably about less than a half a second between the two of them.
Christopher's right there. He's been here several times. If he can just not overdrive the car, I think he's got enough speed to catch him. Try to put a pass on him, maybe going into one here.
He definitely kept it down a lot better than he has on some of the other laps. So maybe he's realizing that he just needs to keep her under control. Much better this time.
And as we ride on board with Christopher Shella here, really get a sense of speed going up the hill there. If you talk to a lot of drivers, that's probably one of their most favorite parts of the track. You're flat out, shifting to the third, going up the hill. And I think you're doing about 130 mile an hour towards the end of that section there, which doesn't sound like a lot compared to some of these ovals, but it's a flat track. 3,400 pounds on a bumpy road course. I guarantee you, every time they go through there, it has their full attention.
Yeah, this is definitely a lot different than your typical oval, even though, you still have, some concentration. But here, it's not only do you have to remember which way the corner's going next, the braking zones, it's a big challenge.
Oh, it is. And trust me, Christopher Shella has caught up to Brian big time. They are maybe 5 car lengths apart. So I think as the laps wind down, we're going to see a great race for the finish for these guys in third place.
Well, I think we are under white flag for Christopher Shella and Brian Harford. So unless something happens here, I think Brian Harford may manage to hold him off. We'll see what Christopher Shella does here for that last half a lap.
See Lance here.
Lance Williams crosses the finish line. He will be your winner at Watkins Glen. He'll be the round 7 winner. He was also the round 5 winner for the Victory Lane Nationwide Series, brought to you by Glacier TV. Congratulations once again to Lance. That was interesting. Oh yeah.
Wow.
And Brian Harford.
You think these guys don't want it? They're going after it. And definitely not happy there.
Well, I unfortunately, I think we have some boys that need to go to the NASCAR hauler after this race. This kind of got ugly.
Your friends are having fun, or there's definitely something going on there as far as somebody thinking that somebody done me wrong.
Well, from Nick's perspective, he's drove this long, 35 laps, not long, I guess, but he's drove this hard race, and, he sees a top 5 coming out of the final corner, and Christopher Shelter may put a little bit of a block move on him, just moved up, give him something to think about, and might have cost Nick a top 5, which, even with this many people, that means something, and it's a psychological barrier, so he may have been frustrated with that.
Yep, you're absolutely right, Ryan. Racers will be racers. I mean, you did me wrong, I'm going to get even, right?
There's no memory like a racer scorn. It's a woman scorn? No, it's a racer scorn. They will remember events from years in if you treat somebody right, they'll remember it. If you treat somebody wrong, same thing. And I think they'll cool off. I don't think there was too much of an issue there, but he definitely let him know.
Yeah, and you see that. I think where you're coming from on that, Ryan. Lance, like again, Lance Williams and Christopher Shella really got into it as far and put Lance Williams was out of the race at Kentucky. So it looked to me like once he saw clean air, he had no intentions of letting anybody get anywhere near that back bumper to have an incident like he had last week. So again, the memory was there, no doubt. I'd like to talk a little bit. We got Lance Williams will be your first place finisher. Congratulations again, Lance. Jacob Fife will finish just about 9 seconds out of there in second place. Number 36 car, number 12 car of Brian Harford will be third place, rounding out your podium. So it looks like we got Christopher Shella in fourth, Christopher Schelzer in fifth, Nick Molino in sixth, David Forsch in seventh. Brandon E. Williams in 8th place. You've got Ryan Wells, Patrick Davis, Nick Zutner, Daniel Hugel, Neil Follick, Eric Hugh, and Sam Adams, respectively, rounding out the rest of the field. Ryan, tell us a little bit about what do you think about the race overall, as far as some of the NASCAR races you've seen on road courses. How did this stack up for you?
I am by definition an oval guy, so I haven't really watched a lot of these races. From what I did see and knowing these guys, I think they did a pretty stand-up job. With these big heavy cars and not being used to it, it can really be a challenge. And for us to go 35 laps and to still have battles for even fourth and third, to me it's impressive. You like to see battles for the win, but as long as there's some kind of a drama on the track, I think it's good for racing, and this had it.
Yeah, well said, Ryan. That was a great race. Kudos to all that finished.
It looks like we're going to get an interview once again with David Forsch and Christopher Shella. I was kind of hoping we could see Lance Williams in here, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to make that happen. So we're going to, once again, do some interviews with the Forsch Racing team.
And one thing that's worth noting is a lot of these guys run sponsors, and some of them run them out of just loyalty. I'm sure Nick Milne is not getting money from gain, but they run these sponsors, Crimson PC, Lane Sim Products, Whiskey River, Golden Corral, Jacob Fife. I think it's worth mentioning them. And, they make it more realistic, and to me it's kind of fun to represent a brand, just even though it's not monetary. Christopher Shelton with Yoo-Hoo, classic example. Great paint scheme. I love that paint scheme, by the way. So
me too.
I just thought that's worth mentioning. These guys, they put a lot of time and effort into it, and this is one of those things that just makes it that much more realistic, if you could say that.
Okay, it looks like we've got up to the booth here. We're going to get another interview with David Forsch and Christopher Shella. Basically, your fourth place and seventh place finisher for today. Looks like these are the racers we've got. So let's start with Christopher Shella. Road course, a little different than the ovals. Tell us how it went.
It went good for this. Just tried to get this CrimsonPC.com Chevy to the front and got a little rough, but you're able to bring it home in fourth place, which wasn't too bad, but really wish I could have gotten a better finish for these guys.
We were talking about that. As a driver, I could see you were giving it everything you had, and then plus some. Do you think you might have had something for him with a couple more laps, or if you could have kind of stick to his bumper, maybe forced a mistake there towards the end?
Yeah, I just felt like I couldn't quite get the power down just enough. But we still had a great car and able to get a pretty good finish.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was mentioning CrimsonPC.com. I believe they do actually sponsor you. I love that paint scheme. It's red. It's not my favorite color, but I think you guys have a great car there. And when you were catching Brian there towards the end, it really looked like your car, like you said, we just couldn't put the power down. And I do have to give you credit, though. You look like you were driving the wheels off of it and making the best out of it. So good race.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, let's take it to team captain of Force Racing, David Forsh. How was the race for you? You see your man Christopher Shella, and you actually had your crew chief in here racing today. How did your team do overall? Huh? What do you think about the race and how you finished?
I'm really happy with the way Shella finished in his CrimsonPC.com Chevy. You know, my LaneSP.com Chevrolet was it was okay. We all ran the same setup, but Nick did a really good job. And as you said, we let him decide. We finally let him get out on the track since he kind of liked the road courses, and he did very well. And considering asking him to come in full time or just part time, just more than what he is already, because he's a really good racer. Everybody. I try to keep everybody close together, and we all work well together. Jeff, our spotter, he just does really wonders. I was really impressed with the way this race turned out. Not the finish that I wanted for my Lane SP, but hey, at least we crossed the finish line. Sideways, but we finished.
Yeah, and I think Christopher's finish in this race, even though it may not have been exactly what he was hoping for, but judging from the standings for this particular race series, it doesn't look like anybody that was on the board that had a chance to challenge him for the points lead finished ahead of him. So I'm pretty sure that, Christopher, it looks like you're going to continue to be the points leader for this series.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's how long that's going to hold once we enter the chase, but so far we've been doing good, and hopefully we can get a championship out of this.
You mentioned the chase, and I don't know how the point system is scheduled in this, but psychologically you're number one, and I would take that forward, and that's a big deal. So I did have a question for David as the team captain or team leader. I noticed that most of your cars took 4 tires. In retrospect, do you still agree with that, or do you think maybe next time just go feel lonely and try to save the time on pit road?
Now that we know what everybody does, we're probably going to go with just fuel. I still stand behind the 4 tires. I mean, we were all battling a loose car. Our tires were gone. We needed those tires, and it helped us out. It kept us alive. So I'm still standing behind that we took 4, and I'm proud that we did because it helped us finish.
Yeah, and I said this in the broadcast. I honestly thought if somebody came down pit road that 4 tires was the best call. And, to finish first, you got to first finish. And I definitely think 4 tires was a good call on you guys' part. It didn't work out in this case, but I'm glad that you stuck with your decision because it was a good one.
Oh, and by the way, it was Nick's idea to go with 4 tires.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, Nick.
Oh, throw him under the bus while he's not here.
Yeah, poor guy. He's off, probably taking notes and preparing for next time. In Nick's defense, I asked because it was a bit of a judgment call, and like I said, I still think Nick made the right call on that. And if you're battling a loose race car here, especially new tires can really make these cars feel a lot better. So
that's interesting
Yeah.
that the crew chief would agree with the crew chief. So we know they all think alike. So that's that's an interesting thing. So tell us a little bit about next week. What looks like next week's schedule is going to be rather exciting. Do you expect a large turnout for next week?
It's Talladega. It's a super speedway. I'm expecting a pretty good turnout. Since it's into the points, more into the points, we might not have as big of a field as we did, say, at the Daytona race. But I'm expecting some guys to be like, okay, it's a super speedway. Why not? Who doesn't love them? I'm trying to get a little buddy in here to race with us next week under Forge Motorsports. So hopefully we have a guest driver driving for Forge Motorsports, but I think it's going to be a good race next week. We're going to get a good finish for Crimson PC, for Lane SP, C2C Racing Designs, which, by the way, was the guy Driggers over at C2C Racing Designs was the guy who did our beautiful. I'm sorry, I love our paint schemes. I love the Crimson PC one, and I love the Lane SV one. He did a really good job. You can see his in the DWC as Charles Cosper, and a bunch of other DWC drivers. Check him out. He's really awesome.
I tell you what, to our credit, we did both. Me and Doyle, we both love the Crimson PC paint job, and I complimented Chris on that. In the broadcast, I would be remiss if I didn't ask. You kind of cryptic about it, but who's your other driver, man?
I think we'll have to wait till next week just to see who it is, if at all, anyway.
All right.
Is that going to be legal according to your series? I noticed you have an awful lot of drivers in this series that are racing 1 and 2 races. Even some of the drivers we saw tonight were not familiar faces. So are we going to see the full complement next week at Talladega?
You might. I mean, it's like I was saying, it's super speedway. Everybody loves them. They say they hate them, but they get off the track like, ooh, I want some more, So I think we're going to get a pretty good turnout. If not, it's still going to be quality racing. Almost everybody here, and I say almost, knows how to drive on a super speedway. So I think we're going to be just fine, even if it's a small field.
All right, before we get out of here, David and Chris, for next week, Talladega, a couple schools of thought. Stay in the front, keep everybody behind you, keep the big one behind you, or stay in the back and try to stay out of trouble that way. Which one are you guys going to go with?
All depends on where we qualify. At least that's for me.
No, it's pretty much what it is. I mean, if you qualify up front, you want to stay up there. If you qualify in the back, you might want to stay back there just to kind of let the field kind of rest and see how many cars there are, who's all out there, and how good they can run. But it's going to be a team goal to keep all of our drivers hooked up 1-2 for majority of the race, or at the end when it actually really counts. So I'm going to be on my brake a lot. Everybody's going to have to be on their brake. You wouldn't think that, but we're going to have to check up a lot because we can't stay on each other's bumpers. So it's going to be interesting.
Okay, we're getting the high sign there to wrap her up. So I really appreciate you guys coming in and talk to us once again. Next week I hope to see maybe a couple other drivers if possible. But, we really do appreciate Team Force coming to talk to us. And really great race, you guys, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, guys, for putting us on.
Okay, well that kind of wraps up right here, round 7 of the Victory Lane Racing Nationwide Series at Watkins Glen, brought to you by Glacier TV. Again, I want to have a big shout out and thank you to our technical crew, Phil Diaz. I want to give a thank you to Ryan Norton, our resident crew chief here, and Randy Krosno. Thanks a lot for everybody for helping out and for a great broadcast, and we'll see everybody next week.